All right. You feel like what?
I feel like it's like you through you see through the like the game, right? And it like your focus is here and the game is here. It's not about focusing on the objects. It's about not not focusing on them and letting your brain just perceive like what is happening.
Yeah.
It's like you're. I think it's like when I do the best, my vision is like past the game, and I'm seeing all of it instead of like a little bit trying to keep track of those little things. I'm like seeing here, which allows this to be like the whole picture is. I don't know how to explain that.
But you saw that on your third time?
Yeah, and like all of the times that I did my best, I wasn't focusing on tracking the balls. I would just see them at the beginning, and then like not like the pictures where it's like a pattern,
Mm-hmm.
but there's like a hidden picture inside it,
Yeah.
and you have to like focus
Yeah.
beyond the
And then it
picture
comes out
and it
at you.
pops out at you. I feel like that's what you have. That's what I was having to do.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, the reason you wear 3D glasses is because we live in a 3D world.
Uh-huh.
So, do you see how that would transfer to handball or to climbing or what?
Yeah.
And you were a safety in college.
Yeah. So I think with
Football.
handball, especially, there's a lot of little things that happen um, all over the court. Let's say you're on offense. There's a lot of little things that are happening with the defense, and you have to like take in the information. Let's say you're like looking at the goalkeeper to see where the goalkeeper is. There's a lot of little things that are happening with the defense of people moving. Even your offensive players are moving inside that field of vision. But you're looking at the goalkeeper, but you have to see how these pieces are coming together between where your focus is and where your eyes are, right? Where it's being perceived. So like you're focused here, but you're seeing all of the things right here happen.
Which is that same thing you were just
Kind of,
doing.
yeah, it's kind of the same thing.
And you got faster
Yeah,
once you figured that out.
kind of, yeah. I think that if I were to do it a few more times and like really work on that, I think that I would get much better. Because it's like whenever I train, I pay like really close attention to all these little things, but then whenever I play, I just turn my brain off. Because then you're just doing what your body's trained to do. And if you think about it, if you focus on that, then you're not playing. You're, you know, so you train really hard, turn your brain off, and it just does what it's supposed to do. So,
That's like a flow state.
right. I think I could figure out how to do this the same way.
Do you, when you're playing and talking about flow state where you're just totally in the moment, engrossed, and you remain in the moment, you're enjoying the process. It's a challenge, but you're in it,
Mm-hmm.
and you are performing. And can you stay in that state? How long can you stay in that state? Does it depend on the day? Does it depend on what you ate? What it depends on how much sleep?
Yeah.
Who you're playing with? So many dynamic factors.
Yeah. Right. So I think all of, it's all in. I think it's depends on the person. Everybody's in.
Yeah.
Everybody's different, but for myself, it also depends on how like how hard I've trained in my mind, because um, there are all of those variables. Like some of them you can't control, some of them you can. Like um, you know what you eat and how much you sleep, and you know you can't control traffic, whether you're going to be late or right. Like there are like emotional things that you can control, like if you're
Right.
mentally sharpened.
Right.
But you know, and you start talking about playing in tournaments where you're playing maybe like 5 games in 2 days, and at the end of it, like you don't even want to play. You're just like, all right, let's get this over with. Um, I think that all goes back to like how hard you've trained
Yeah.
and what it means to you as an individual. For me, like I love I love using my body for the things that like God has created my body to do. So it's like when you start talking about the flow state, it's for me, it's like just letting my body just open up and like max out its effort. Like when I'm running, it's like full strides, like fast paced. You know, whenever I'm throwing, it's like really hard, really accurate shots. It's not even about playing against somebody. I mean, it is, but for me, it's more about like maximizing what I have trained myself to do, and then like if I'm competing, like stomping on their throats, like those things combined, and it just like goes. I don't know how to. I feel
Yeah.
like it's um, how long can you do that? I think that it all goes back to training. I think that it all goes back to like how hard you've trained.
Yeah. Do you think you can come in and out on demand?
No,
Like I need to come out for a moment.
I I think that there. I think that like first of all you train your body to do that, but then there are times where you have to tap into like an emotional component to either one remain in there, or like if you've come out of it to like get back into it. But like for me, I understand, at least for myself, like emotions run out, and so like when it comes down to like using emotion to get into that, like you know, you see people who are like pumped up like in during football games or basketball games or whatever it might be, using that, eliciting that emotional response to like maintain or to get back into the flow state. But that runs out. You know, if you see football players, right, they're like that all the time during a football game. But what if you were to play like in handball, 5 football games in one weekend? That's not sustainable.
Right.
It's just emotionally, it's not sustainable.
Right. Now, what if the emotion was, now you're in the Olympics or you're playing the Pan Am games and you're like it's the last game, it's the championship, then the emotion would be different
Absolutely, because
than
that's
some
what,
long tournament that we're just here just to train,
right.
kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure, it's much
I mean,
different.
that would be any human being's mind.
Well, I think that like when you get to the pinnacle of like your career or like your sport, um, and like it's, you know, either you win or you lose, right?
Right.
I think that like what you're willing to sacrifice and what you're willing to do kind of changes, because the way I approach training is like I would rather die than give up. But especially when it gets to that point, everybody thinks that way. Like I would much rather die in this gold medal match than let the other team beat me. And so like like eliciting the emotional response is so much easier there. But because like once you put that in your mind, and first of all, I think any man or woman or whatever, I think anybody is unstoppable if they approach things that way.
Yeah.
Like if I don't do this, I will die. You know, you can achieve, I think, any goal.
Yeah.
Um, as long as you're willing to like go through the process and sacrifice. You know.
Right. I love what you're saying, and I'm looking for my notebook. It's downstairs. I'm just so I can be out there. I want to read you something I wrote. I'll get it downstairs in a minute. In sports psychology, we talk about winning and winning and losing. But in my line of work, it was about living and dying. But if you take that mindset and apply it to sports, and the sports mindset is one that if I knew I was going to die in 6 months, I'd continue doing it, and that would be that commitment. But then on the level of play and determination, is I will die before I give up.
Yeah.
I'm willing to literally
Mm-hmm.
die.
Mm-hmm.
And in a jet, I would rather have died in combat than to give up and be a puss and go home.
Yep.
I would never have come home. I'd rather die than do that.
Yeah.
So I would push the edge. I push the edge beyond where I should go.
Yeah.
Many times. I mean,
Absolutely.
some of the stuff on the wall is a reflection of that, and it's not for vanity. It's more to remind myself of who I am.
Right.
That okay, you've been there. You can freaking do it again.
Yeah.
Don't give up. Don't be a freaking push.
That's right.
Don't. Remember, you said you freaking die for this.
Yeah.
So.
I agree, man, and I think.
But I haven't heard anyone say that.
Wow.
And I'm glad. And this is between us. And I don't know how to write that without looking arrogant.
I had to give a best man speech a few weeks ago, and that was part of what I was gonna say. And I told one of the other guys, they're like, "What are you gonna say?" And this was literally right before I was gonna say it, after the wedding, before the reception, because I didn't know until right before. Matter of fact, true story. The night before the wedding, I tried to talk the groom out of getting married, and so I asked him 3 questions. The third question is, "Are you willing to die for this?" And they're like, "You cannot say that in front of the whole crowd. They won't receive it well." So I had to change what I was going to say, and I had to change it to, "What are you willing to sacrifice?"
Yeah. I think in a marriage, though, you have to be willing. And I think once you have kids, and I didn't really realize this until I had them, that I would jump out in front of a car to save that kid.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I would have said that before I had kids.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't have kids, and I think that's who I would be as a father. So I understand, but I think that maybe if you rephrase it, because people will have to understand death first. They have to understand their own mortality before you can tell them, if you're going to do something, only do it if you're willing to die for it.
Right.
And then approach it in that manner, and you will be the best.
Right.
But they have to understand their own life and what it means to them, what it means to the people around them, and a lot of people don't. So
I'd say probably most don't, and I think that's what separates the pretender from the contender, or the athlete from the elite athlete, is the willing to die.
Yeah, and right, I agree. And that's why I had to rephrase it to, what are you willing to sacrifice?
Well, what are you willing to sacrifice?
And so,
I don't have my book up here either. I got this book that has all the different sports in it. It's got team handball, and one of the things about handball qualities is that the athlete has to be willing to sacrifice glory for the team.
Yes, it's a team sport.
It's a team sport, but I guess this book breaks it down, saying that team ball even requires that even more, that mindset. Well, that's what John Wooden has up there for team spirit, is that eagerness to sacrifice personal glory for the sake of the team. But I don't think in our society that's as prevalent as it needs to be.
So I think that how we have gotten here as like a developed society, a developed culture and country, right? I think that many, the vast majority of people had the mindset, I am going to do my craft as if my life depends on it. Why? Because it does. And to go from a developing nation to an industrialized or whatever, where we are now, you had to have those people that were willing to die, because if they didn't do things well, they did die. Their families did suffer.
Mm-hmm.
Their children did starve to death. And we don't, when we play other teams, like let's say we play the South Americans, right? Let's say we play Brazil or we play Argentina. They're really, really good at handball because they have to be or they don't eat. We have college degrees that we got bridges we can cross. We can go back on and lean on our college degrees. We can go get a job at a restaurant, right, and get free food once a day or whatever it is. They have to be good at handball, or not only they don't eat, their family doesn't eat. Their wife doesn't eat, their kids don't eat, their mom don't eat, their dad don't eat. They don't have Medicare down there. They don't have nursing homes. Like, they are good or they die. They don't just die, everybody else dies. So it's like that's how we get to that's people don't have that mentality, but it's not necessarily. I think it's just a product of like our success.
What about someone who's in a housing project?
So it's the same thing. So the reason why
But they gotta eat, so they want to be good in sports.
That's exactly right, and that's one of the reasons why I view it the way that I view it is because I didn't grow up in a housing project, but my mom raised us. My mom is blind, and raised 4 kids as a blind single mom on $10,000 a year. Right. So it's like
That is in the same degree.
it is. It really is. And so for me, um, it was about like I if and obviously like I'm undersized and I played football. I played football well. I knew every day during off season. I knew every day during football season or every game for years and years and years. I was never going to be the biggest, never going to be the strongest, never going to be the fastest. And now that I'm an adult, I'm never going to be the best looking or funniest or wealthiest or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I can always work hardest. I
Mm-hmm.
can always step into the room and work harder than everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And when it came to sports, never going to be the biggest, strongest, fastest.
But you can outwork.
But I'm going to hit you in your chin.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put in the hours when you're asleep or when you're partying. I'm going to be in the gym.
Yeah.
And then whenever you face me, you better defend your life because I'm coming after it. And I think that is one of the things that separates the people who are elite in whatever it is they do, whether it's sports or business or whatever it is. They are willing to sacrifice who they are for who they can become. And the
I
people,
like that. That's a good quote.
yeah. And so the people that get second place, the people that get last place, whatever place they might get, they are held back by the good things. They are held back by their
Mm-hmm.
success or by their genetic gifts whenever it comes to sports, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of times people are held back by the good. They're not willing to sacrifice who they are right now for who they will be tomorrow. And for me, like, I always knew that I was never going to be any of those things on the football field. And so I always had to live in tomorrow. I always had to be there and train now for that,
Right.
you know. So, I think it's the same thing with handball.
Yeah.
And but I guess that's why, here I am like I'm older and as a rookie, I'm an old rookie, but I'm still able to get out there
Right.
and work hard because I'm willing to die,
Right.
you know. And if I were to tell you my tryout story, like, it was not a good tryout until I realized